We have a celebrity with us, Amanda Busick of Fox Sports. You can see her on the NHRA coverage, dominating when it comes to motorsports, does so much different things, entities with Fox Sports as it relates to motorsports. And it's an honor to have her. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor for Fox Sports Radio, and we're going to highlight a very inspirational career of the one and only Amanda Busick. So this will be a whole lot of fun. There are so many different avenues in your life that are motivational, as you know, Amanda. And so I think that it needs to be spotlit for many people to see. But I want to begin with this. Why is your mom your superhero?
Oh man, gosh. And just to, I don't know if the word celebrity will ever sound normal. So, although to my mom, I am her little, but she
Sure.
has the real stories, right? Like she knows what really happens when the cameras are off. Oh man, gosh, all of it. My mom has been part of this journey since I had the crazy idea that I could even, potentially make something of myself in this industry. She was right by my side when, on a whim, I decided to move to New York to work for a sports agent and work at a restaurant at night. I with everything that I've accomplished and everything that I've failed at, she's been in my corner. And on my website or when people ask me about who's my inspiration, it is without a doubt my mom. I would not be talking to you right now if it wasn't for the belief in just I don't know. It's a special bond that no matter what, she's proud of her little girl, and to be able to give her some of that gift back has been really special.
When do you remember a prominent pep talk she gave you and a time in your life where you really needed it when it came to trying to figure out, oh, you know what? Sorry, something popped on my screen. You mind if I ask you that question again?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll edit it back in.
Yeah, no problem.
When do you remember a time in your life when your mom was there and she gave you a prominent pep talk when your dreams of making it in this business were certainly up in the air, but she said something to you that stuck and just kept you driven, kept you fixated on the goals, on the dream?
Gosh, there's not there. There's been many of those conversations, right? I mean, I think as you know, a lot of this business is rejection. A lot of this business is going on auditions and going on interviews and it being, well, not yet, or you need more reps, or
Mhm.
you need more opportunity, and it's kind of becomes this like, how how can I get more reps if I don't have
Yeah,
the opportunity,
no
right? Like I try
question.
to explain it to, we don't, in our profession, there's no gym that I can go to and work on my free throws, right? Like having someone say yes and believing me and trusting me of being in the spot to perform is how you grow. So I would say if there's a moment in my life specifically where I needed my mom in my corner and I knew she was right there with me, it would have been my first leap from intern into production assistant when I moved to Chicago. The 3 years that I spent in Chicago were some of the most challenging, yet also some of the most rewarding. I mean, I was responsible for, when you first come into the business, and I like to tell this to the next generation of us that we get to mentor along the way. I always, to me, I've been a runner in a television truck. I've been the production assistant ingesting college football highlights till 3 a.m. on a Sunday so that the show's ready to go for Monday. And to be in those roles, though, it also gives you a lot of appreciation for everyone else around you that's working and what their jobs are. And so, no, during that time during Chicago where you're making nothing.
Yeah.
I'm living on an air mattress, still working at a restaurant to afford living in Chicago, on top of trying to work my first gig. There's some challenging moments, and yeah, her belief in what I was aspiring for. saved me many times.
What's the one no you got in your come up that you clench and you hold on to as a source of major inspiration?
Ooh, gosh, it's I just had this conversation with a younger female that I mentor who just similarly had rejection, and to me, it's being able to look back at those no's, and a no can be a greater yes on your
Hmm.
path. And I think of the no's that I got that I'm so thankful now that they were no's. I would say probably one of the ones that may have been the hardest to digest. It was between me and another candidate for a gig with the Boston Celtics, and I think it was the first time that I had really gone through the process of an audition at that level. And it's kind of fun. Like, I got to, they fly you out to Boston, you're meeting with the teams and to go through the whole process. Um, and you leave feeling confident, you leave feeling great. And, but it was one of those things that I knew I was so close that there was going to be hopefully another
Hmm.
opportunity around the corner. So, it's listen. We get to sit in the position of looking back at our nose as how they have helped us to where we are now, um, and then just to hopefully extend that out to who might be listening. Of your nose become maybes. Like maybe you're just not where they need you to be yet, but you can be. And so to use it as a motivation has it's hard. You still got to pick yourself up, but
Yeah.
it's there are some that I'm thankful for.
A no today could be a yes tomorrow. It could
Yes,
be a yes in a
totally.
week. It could be a yes in a month, as you
Yes.
know, and certainly we've lived that. Amanda Busick joining us. I'm Bryan Fenley. Obviously, Amanda does amazing work at Fox Sports with NHRA and beyond, and I'm an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. I look behind you and I see all the different cities that you've frequented, you've lived.
Yeah.
Six different ones. You start in Greensboro. I went to UNCG, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, so I certainly understand what it's like to live there. Such a unique pattern, but you told me before we started that it was one in which you wouldn't trade for,
Yeah.
despite all the bumps and all the
Yeah.
undulations. Why is that?
Gosh, every single one of them has their own story. Every single one of them has their own chapter. And every single one of them represents a different, not version of me. You're the same person in all of these cities, but as you get older and you experience different parts of your career, different layers add. And I can think of exactly, what I was doing in Chicago as what I was doing in Los Angeles and Boston. And so to encompass all those memories into me, into these, squares behind me, it's a reminder. I had a mentor early on, and it's when you're the starving artist and trying to like just
Hmm.
keep a roof over your head, and them looking and saying, hey, remember the hungry years, enjoy the journey. And at the time you can't understand it because you're so impatient. And I find say what you will about millennials or people that are younger trying to come up, that impatience that I had um was directly related to my ambition. The impatience of not being satisfied or where I was also the driving force to want better. And now, you're on the other, you get to the other side of that. But I wish I would have, I wish I could go back and tell my younger self that, enjoy it now. But maybe not, because that drive and that need to succeed is what allowed me to hear no so many times and still go after it, I guess. I don't know what that says
Yeah.
about us, but
Well, it eventually led to a humongous yes. And that's where I want to go to now. You got a call a couple years back. Where were you when this call was received
yeah,
and what exactly was discussed? Because this was a call that changed your life.
yeah. So it had been 2015. I was actually sitting at the time. I had relocated to Boston, as my mom, the the most important person in my life. She was having some struggles of her own at the time. So I took a job in Boston selling meat to take care of the both of us. I can see it picture perfect where I was in this conversation. Her and I lived in a 400 square foot, 1 bedroom apartment in Boston. And how it worked is like you enter into the apartment, there's the kitchen, there's the bathroom on the left hand side. But as you walk down the hallway, there was a bedroom on one side, and then there was the living area that had a door on it. So we were able to, two people to be in this apartment.
Mhm.
I was sitting on the side of my bed when I received the call asking what I knew about drag racing. And I said, "Oh, the long skinny things with parachutes." And they're like, "Yeah, start studying." So this would have been July of 2015. Um, Around August, September, I started getting having communications with the who they hired as the executive producer. This was all as the series was switching from ESPN to Fox. So at that point, and listen, it's the interesting part about it is that I had, in a way, accepted what my life was now. I had accepted that, it, it didn't, you can know everybody. You can know, um, you can have all the pieces, but if one part of that link is missing, whether it's the timing or the opportunity or a position even being available, it all has to come together for that moment to hit. And it definitely wasn't for lack of effort. But I had just accepted that, okay, this is how it is, this is how it goes. And so to begin the conversations back and forth and to get a second opportunity at something that your heart desired, um I mean, I dove head straight and was able to go to my first national event in Dallas, Texas in October. And at the award show in November, they offered me the role that night, and I moved to Los Angeles.
Wow.
We add this one. See, it goes
Yeah.
Boston to Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, and now you are stationed in
I'm in
Raleigh.
Raleigh. Yep, yep.
When you got notification that you were going to be part of this,
Yeah.
am I not mistaken? But you went to drag racing school to
Oh, heck
help
yeah.
educate yourself. Like, take us into that
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. So the interesting part of the whole journey of this too is when I was hired with the NHRA, I was hired to be their internal digital reporter. They were in the process of building a studio in their offices. So during that, I was able to get on the road and do a lot of features in the meantime while we were finishing up the studio. It just happened that some of the features we ended up popping into the Fox Sports broadcast. And then when there was a rain out at one of our races in Epping, New Hampshire, I probably would have been about June of 2016. One of the one of the reporters had to leave. So they put me in. They put me in to work the role that I work now at the top end. And I just remember just the exhilaration of what is happening. Now, I had done one interview on air live prior to that, and that was with John Force in Vegas. He had just got Twitter.
Yeah.
It was like the funniest, and honestly, it could not have been a better initiation. My producer is counting down in my ear, and John Force is still about 25 feet away from me, walking like in his own way, and I'm like, yeah, but I can't do that because I'm on
Yeah.
air already, and I'm like, but that's the fun part about television. Most of it is, you get to know the people, you get to know the sport, you get to know the content. A lot of it is surviving the chaos. A lot of it is just like being prepared for everything, and that is drag racing. And I I truly feel that I have the best job in sports, and it's the the reason I say that is when I was living in that city, Chicago.
Mhm.
Uh, my pursuit was still in the college sports space. And don't get me wrong, I love college sports. I grew up in Greensboro, Tobacco Road. Like the only time I would get out of school was for the state fair and the ACC tournament. Like I
Yeah.
grew up a huge basketball fan. From a job standpoint, being the top end reporter in drag racing is so satisfying. If your listeners, if they're familiar with the format of how drag racing works, in a traditional race, it's two cars side by side that go down a track. They exit the track, and then I'm stationed right there. So it's kind of a unique property. There's not really many other sports, not even that I can really compare it to, where you can still talk to your competitor and athlete while they're competing. And so to have that interaction face to face with a driver immediately, it provides a lot of entertainment for me and for the viewers.
Oh
So
yeah.
no, I consider myself extremely fortunate, and I even beyond that, just the crew that I get to work with week in, week out, it becomes your family. You're on the road year round, so it's a real treat.
What's the warmest compliment you've ever received from a driver?
From a driver, actually, I will have to go back to so the thing that wherever I always like to think that I'm still pretty early in my career. Let's say in the length of the game, maybe I'm at the top of the second inning. Let's because
Yeah.
you never want it to end. I hope I have a long full career doing what I get to love. Um, but I do tell people that I to be able to share my career alongside such a legend like John Force. I will always be thankful for this time right now to have kicked that off alongside someone so dynamic. But back in 20, gosh, my first full season on air was 17. So I guess this would have been 2018. He had some explosions, wrecks were happening. It just, things just weren't going great for John Force, and I had to hold him accountable. And as much as someone might look at that as, well, how can you ask that of John Force? Well, it's my duty to ask that of John
Sure.
Force, and I've always approached this gig from wanting to answer the question of the viewer sitting at home, and if I can, if there's any like thought or lingering thing that's in their mind, if I can bring that back into the broadcast, or if I can like infiltrate that conversation through what we're also dealing with at the top end, that's how I try to operate. So we were doing a morning show in Atlanta. It was Atlanta or Richmond, and this was 2018, and we had John Force as one of the guests. And I can't even remember the exact quote, but it was almost like he appreciated that I was hard on him, and he
Wow.
appreciated that I had the guts to kind of. He was like, "You're good," and that that's what it is. I they call it, a lot of times. We're around these people all the time, so friendships are going to happen, right?
Mhm.
But I want the respect. I want to know that um, it's hard and it's challenging, and we're living this linearly together. Um, but to at least know that me holding you accountable is because my duty beyond just who you are as a driver. And I think I've been able to do that in my career, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of that, that authentic exchange. That, and I mean, they're entertainers. These people are risking their lives for our entertainment. There's going to be moments that aren't pleasant, but to be able to showcase it genuinely, I think we do a good job at it.
How did you feel like you had to earn the respect of those in the industry when you
Yeah.
made the move to NHRA, and how hard that was to prove to everybody, look, I know what I'm talking about. I love this sport,
Yeah.
and I'm going to commit myself to
Yeah.
everything of that atmosphere.
Very difficult. Especially not coming from a background in drag racing. A lot of times these families are generational. They've been around the sport for their entire lives. And, I get it. I don't want to make it a female male thing, but, and you add that layer on top of it. And unfortunately, there is kind of an opinion that, women in sports media, um, what I like to try to tell the young ladies that I get to mentor is while an appearance might open a door for you, it's not going to allow you to stay in the door. The second you don't have credibility, or the second you don't know what you're talking about, then you're exposed, right? So I think that's why, unfairly, and some aspects of it, women do work extremely hard, in this business to, kind of, um, I don't want to say earn the credibility, because most of them already have it, right? But no, it's one of those things of, like you said, I went to the Frank Colley drag racing school. I was obsessed with making sure I knew everything about this sport, and it extends beyond just the drivers. I want our audience to be proud. Like, that's our announce team. Like, that's our guys. And, we want them to be able to tell their friends, like, hey, don't forget to tune into the NHRA show, because they know we're going to give them an authentic broadcast that they feel a part of, and we're making them as proud as they're making us. So that's kind of the the way that I try to go about it.
How do you go about, and I know you've been open about this, Amanda, and I can certainly empathize with you and having to kind of maneuver this life without a dad. And you've talked about how when you were 3 years old, you lost your father. I was a teenager when I lost mine to cancer, but to to continue to use his legacy as fuel, as that motivating force that you just keep fighting and fighting and fighting for your dream. How would you picture that dynamic in your life?
Oh yeah, I mean, and even as I've gotten older, and um, I kind of, and I'm sure it's, the undeveloped ego at when we are children and even in our 20s, but I always would think about of what I've missed out on without a dad, or not being at my graduation or prom, or all these different things. And as I've gotten older, I more think about what he missed out on, not being able to see his kids grow up. My brother has the most adorable 3-year old niece. I have a 3-year old niece. Like, the idea that he, never got to see his grandkids. So I think that becomes part of the fuel as well. That if I'm going to do it, let's make the story real good for him. And it's pretty neat. I come from a small town outside of Greensboro. Went to a small high school, and the same high school that my dad went to. It's kind of known what I get to do in my life now professionally, and I've even been able to hear stories about my dad that I never knew about. People reach out on Facebook and say, "Oh, you're T. Busick's daughter," and I'm like, "Yeah," and then they're like, "Let me tell you the story." Which, by the way, he lived his life wide open. My dad was the guy with the Corvette, Harleys, airplanes. And unfortunately, he lost his life young, but I think he put every day into the years that he did have.
I want to leave you with this question, Amanda. Seeing the excitement, seeing the thrill of your mom watching you on television, what do you remember, or what did she tell you about that first moment where she saw you on Fox? And she
Oh
knew,
yeah.
and she knew the sacrifices, the uncertainty, having to take odd jobs just to stay afloat, all that you had to do. And then to see that from her daughter.
Oh yeah. I mean, even to this day, she'll turn on the race, and um bless her, like, she doesn't have Well, my mom doesn't really watch TV anyway, so but the patience to like sit down for through, through our races are 3 hours long. That's just not her personality. She's constantly doing things and moving around. But she turns on the broadcast, turns it up, and when she hears my voice, she runs back in the room and sees it and watches it. It's kind of fun too to see her experience in all this too, because she didn't have an easy life. At 32 years old, someone walked in her house and told her that her husband had been killed. For people that may not have faced a tragic death in their life, it truly is a nuclear bomb landing onto a family, and no one is the same again. No one is okay. Every piece of that is broken. There's no putting it back together. And for her to be 32 years old with a 3-year old and an 8-year old, and have to pick her life back up together, I kind of revel in the idea that when she's at work and her work friends are like, "Oh, your daughter, we saw her this week." Like, I like that she gets to experience the success of what her. I mean, my brother, he went along on and got his PhD for Vanderbilt. He works with autistic kids. So the idea that she gets to experience the joy of our success, it's she deserves it. It's been a hard path for her, and if the rest of my life I can make sure that she is happy and fulfilled, and one of these being that, that feels good for me.
Amanda, you are doing that and so much more.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate your transparency and your openness and sharing what you've gone through. And it's made you who you are. And despite all these struggles, you find a way to push through and finish on top. And I'm proud of you. And I'm grateful to have you on this. And I'm really excited for people to see this. Amanda Busick with Fox Sports with NHRA. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. Thank you so much for making the time and sharing your very inspirational story.
Thank you, Brian. Pleasure's mine.